I'm here at the International Conference on Men's Issues 2019. I'm with Sargon of Akkad and also Brian Martinez of the Honey Badgers fame.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to jump in with questions for Sargon. He's just delivered his talk, and it was a fantastic talk about how you became involved in the culture wars movement and how you discovered Karen Strawn as well.
Yeah.
And going back to all of that, do you think it was just something about that, 2012, 2013, when everything kind of went wrong in Western civilization?
I don't think I'd make it that grandiose, but it was obviously something about the cultural atmosphere at the time. But it was when feminism was really starting to sort of actually come to dominate these institutions. Essentially the form of shaming that they were using was like a bulldozer. It was just sweeping over everything. Mm-hmm. And when someone called someone a misogynist, oh God, Jesus Christ, that's terrible. And people took the accusation as if it was legitimate, which it's not. It's just a weapon. So you oppose feminism.
Mm-hmm. I kind of saw this as well, and it was fantastic for me discovering Karen Strawn and seeing all of those videos and all of those ideas, and it was like just opening a brand new door. And I'm not sure if both of you had the same experience of that. Or...
Oh yeah, absolutely. Why am I? Okay, yes, I too am having this experience. But yeah, he basically nailed it on the head. The point of it is to essentially get people in line. And the funny thing is that accusations of misogyny, in order to correct people's behavior, when they respond to it with, "Hey, I didn't mean to do that. How do I correct my behavior?" actually proves the opposite of the accusation. Which is that they're not misogynist.
Doesn't care that you accuse them of being misogynist. Another thing is what the left goes on about you can't make sexist jokes, you can't make racist jokes because they're demeaning to women or the minorities, whatever. It's like, no, there aren't racist jokes in a racist society. They're just statements. There are evil statements.
Yes.
But the whole joke is that the person saying it is showing, is pretending to be out of touch with the cultural atmosphere around them. And so, they say something that sounds terrible because everyone's like, oh my God, you can't say that. And that's the joke, that there's a common understanding that is a terrible thing. And so that's proof that it's not a racist society or a sexist society. That's how you know.
And I think that's black comedy, isn't it? Is the entire premise is
honestly,
saying something that is inappropriate to say.
That's why it's so funny. Because it's like, well, no one thinks that.
Yeah, I remember, with the Count Dankula thing a few years ago, and that was just unbelievable. And then it was like a real sea change because, we'd had so many cracking jokes about Nazis and so on before that, and then suddenly it wasn't allowed anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Nazis are the butts of jokes because they lost the war and they were evil. We don't need to worry. I'm not worried about accidentally becoming a Nazi. I find Nazis as figures of fun. I grew up with the Monty Python guys making jokes about them and Blackadder and stuff like this. It was always, they were the thing that was to be made fun of because they're bad. And it was understandable why they were bad. So we're not afraid of that, but now everyone's terrified.
If you can't ridicule them, then you give them power.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be able to do that. This is words have a tremendous amount of power if you let it. I grew up in, predominantly Black and Hispanic communities, and the kinds of racial slurs that you're not allowed to say, like the N-word and stuff, they have less power then than they do now. And it's insane. They're literally considered violence, which actually makes them, because they consider those words to be violence, it actually is used as a way to legitimize actual violence against them. It's pretty crazy. So I want to ask a question now. So Sargon, how are you enjoying Chicago? Have you ever been here before?
I haven't been here before, and the only time I left the hotel was to go to an arcade last night. But it was really good fun. I've not seen we don't really have these big flashy arcades in Britain. I had a really good time. Playing all the games, playing some pool. Turns out Americans can't play pool.
No, probably not up in Rosemont. You'd probably have to go into the city itself. But another thing I'm wondering about is you've never been to an ICMI before, and you've been here. This is the last day, and you've just done your keynote. And I'm wondering, Is there anything that you saw at the ICMI that you that you basically took something away from here that you would like, wow, I didn't know that before, or something that was that sort of stuck with you, like a standout moment?
No individual moment that I can think of. Well, honestly, it's been very uncontroversial in my opinion. You know, the things that you guys are saying are not radical or wild or offensive or hateful or anything like this. It's all very sensible stuff. I mean, Philip Davies' speech yesterday, very, very good, and it was a really clear outline of the problems that are affecting men as gendered problems, and there are, you know. And so there's nothing there that I found disagreeable. The thing that I find most noteworthy is just how many women are involved. I think people really think that it's just going to be a group of resentful men. It's like, no, this isn't an incel movement or something like this. This is often a movement of men who have had broken relationships and stuff. They don't have problems getting women or, you know, dealing with women. They have problems with the legal consequences of having those relationships and things like this. So it's nothing like that one would expect. And obviously the women are very fair-minded. They're all like, well, hang on, I actually love the men in my life, and I can see that they're suffering, and I can see there's a legal structure that's making that happen. I want to help. And so it's very, very normal. And it's very uncontroversial. And the media, the media reports talk about MRAs are just totally out of touch with reality, as far as I can see.
Some might say it's actually progressive.
It's definitely liberal.
Yeah, it's definitely liberal.
I think there's a clear distinction between progressive and liberal, but it's definitely liberal. It's the main contention of the men's rights movement, as far as I can see from, like I said in my speech, is there is a promise of equal treatment in a liberal order. And men are not being treated equally. They're actually being, like, the feminists hand in hand with the patriarchy, really. And they say, well, we want, you know, women to have short sentences. In fact, maybe we should abolish women's prisons altogether. Well, okay, now you have to abolish men's prisons. And it's that kind of, you know, well, why are you not giving men the fair treatment that you promised? That the men's rights movement seems to be arguing for. So I would describe it as an inherently liberal movement.
I think one of the themes I've seen from this conference that has come out in a lot of the talks has been fatherlessness and just the absolute devastation this causes. And, you know, from so many of the speakers, you know, it just, there's this continual focus on this theme. So, I wanted to, you know, get your take on that particular issue.
I think it's the worst thing that can happen to a society, really. I think that, I mean, if it was motherlessness, it'd probably be just as bad. You know, it would probably, you know, if we did live in a patriarchy and young boys and their fathers got everything they wanted, and, you know, when the family split, then the children went with the father and they never saw their mother, I'm sure that they would suffer in different ways, but just as much. And I think it's deeply unhealthy. I think that if a relationship breaks down, then it should be shared custody, it should be equal treatment. And it's not just for the fact that the parents have rights in this regard. It's not just for their own mental health, it's for the health of the well-being of the children. I think it's deeply unhealthy to pit people against one another like this. I can't even begin to imagine how unfortunate some people are by virtue of just their circumstances of birth in this regard. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a family where my parents are still married. You know, they love each other, they loved us, and so I realised that if anyone ever wants to talk about privilege, that's the real privilege. Is growing up in a stable nuclear family, because then you come out as a stable, healthy, well-rounded person. You know, that's the way it happens, and it's the way it's happened through all of human history in all cultures. Why would we think we could suddenly just? I mean, like, and it's the very bedrock of our civilization. The nuclear family is the bedrock of all of society and everything we have. And we're so blasé, so frivolous, we just go, it doesn't matter. It does. It really does. You know, it matters to the children, it matters to the parents involved. It matters. So we should be responsible. Yeah,
I used to think, I talked a lot about, with my wife, we have the most insane, like, philosophical debates about, the politics and culture and stuff. And one of the things that I've been, like, thinking about a lot is because the mainstream narratives, the conversations around the things that happen. A boy or a young man goes and he shoots up a place, kills 30 people, dies in the process. And then you wait and see what everyone has to say about it. and of course,
Every hot take under the sun.
and all of the takes come out, and all of the galaxy brain ideas, and
Is it
you
something
get
about Trump? I guess.
Trump
yeah.
isn't Trump's part of it. It's about gun control. It's about toxic masculinity. It's about entitlement. It's about MRAs. It's about incels, or even people who are sympathetic. In some ways, they might make it about race. They might make it about other kind of identity politics. They might make mental health, and these kinds of things. And I know that many of them might be legitimate. Most of them are not, or they're irrelevant, like gun control, for example.
They're the means, but they're not the motive.
Yeah,
And you just see out of the last 28 mass U.S. school shooters, 26 came from fatherless homes.
Yes, 2016 from fatherless homes, and I know that's the problem, and I think the family is the problem. But this is, I was going wider than that. I was thinking like, okay, so individualism is something that we should all be striving for. However, sometimes I wonder if that's something that human beings can do, and that we're not sort of like biologically encouraged to be somewhat collectivist, but maybe, and here's what I will say this, I think that we are tribal by nature, but I think that we can rein that in such a way that we don't make it into a larger collective thing, because, like, for example, leftists believe that they are part of a tribe. That's leftism. That if they're intersectional, ideologically possessed, university-educated individuals that believe they need to save the world with their revolutionary politics, they belong to a tribe, and that tribe is leftism. People who are engaged in identity politics, like Black Lives Matter activist types, they believe they belong to a tribe called Black people, and they have something called Blackness. And even though it's not, easily defined, and of course it seems really two-dimensional, because not all Black people are the same, they still operate under that model, because the tribalism and of course Black activist types reinforce that over and over. The most important thing about who you are is the fact that you are Black. Right? And this goes all over the spectrum. People who whatever it is they identify with. That's why you get all of these subgroups. So what we're seeing is tribalism in all these different forms. Even the alt-right
it's a replacement
works
for
like
the
that.
family, basically.
Yes, they're replacing the family, and that's what I was getting at. Is that what is the one model under which, or what is an example of a model under which a kind of communist system could actually work? Well, it's a family where the father, redistributes his resources to a mother and the children, right? What communists want are to make that model global. Obviously, it can't work because resources are finite. But I think that beyond that, the best version of the tribe, as it were, is the family. Like, it starts at that core. So I remember a time where people would call themselves by their tribe, which was their last name. I'm a, I don't know, like what was it from
the Scots still do it, the Campbells and the
you got it right. Like I'm a Baggins, right? That's like a tribal statement, but it's not because you're operating within a community of small tribes that are various hobbits, I guess, my example. You can they can work together and still without completely abandoning because it takes a special kind of person to be a staunch individualist. And the fact is,
let me interrupt, because
okay.
So individualism as a political philosophy is not meant to be a social philosophy. It's meant to be the way the government deals with you. The government doesn't have license to trample on your rights for the group of X.
Yeah, because you're a sovereign person, you own yourself. Right.
Exactly. The aristocratic group don't get to oppress your rights. But conversely, I mean, on a social level, humans are totally groupish. I don't want to say tribal, because it's got connotations of groupish. They love to form groups. They love to form groups. They're very social animals. Yep. We can't get away with it. We can't get away without it. Yep. A person who lives on their own is considered to be a very weird person who has no friends and they're considered to be weird. The difference is the ability to self-associate. That's where you're free. You know, that's you acting in your freedom. So if you like, you know, you see a political group, you're going to be a conservative or a liberal or a leftist or whatever, you can associate into that group and you can leave when you want. You know, and then so you take on the aspect of the group while you're there, and you renounce it and leave. And this is what's so unfair about identity politics, is that you don't get to choose. You don't get to associate. You have it dictated to you, top down, and that again is an infraction of your rights. This is the whole. This is why the individualists are saying, "Hey, you can't treat me like this." But it's never a rejection of the fundamental essence of the groupishness of human beings.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
No.
You know,
And then everyone is just divided into their race and
I agree.
gender.
Yeah,
and so
I
you have
agree.
all of the sexism and racism that implies. Yeah.
So the
I
sort
get
of
what you're saying.
Individual sort of thing, like that seems to be more like objectivism.
No, I don't see it that way. I do think people get that kind of mixed up.
Because
I've seen
wanted to make that clear,
No, I
because
understand.
It is a distinction that I think a lot of people overlook. And, you know, the point is to be free to associate how you want. You know, because of course you want to associate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I've seen some guys that are, I don't know if James Alsup is an example, if he's somebody that's like kind of out there, but he criticizes this idea of individualism a lot because he is kind of a collectivist, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at with it is that if you're groupish with something like you have something as tight and as close and as intimate as a family as your main tribe, I think it's a lot more difficult for these larger identity politics oriented groups to pull you out because you feel, you know, close to that, right? So you're saying, oh no, I'm a Martinez, I won't be a part of whatever, you know,
it's in their interest to break up the family.
Yeah, because then they can get more people on board. Is one of the other things that I was talking about. I was speaking on a panel, and I was talking about how the issues that we're seeing with Antifa, with the alt-right, with which I don't think are right-wing. I just say that because then people know what I'm talking about. They're just socialists.
Mirror image of the leftists.
They're just socialists.
They're a bunch of
just
conspiracy
leftists.
theorists, aren't they?
Well,
I think,
no,
It's not
not
that.
It's that I'm just saying that ultimately I don't like that they're cast as right-wing or far-right, and I think it's wrong because when you look at what they believe and you compare, let's say you take Richard
is very
Spencer.
progressive.
Yeah,
by his
he
own
is.
admission.
Yes,
By his own admission.
and he was part of Occupy Wall Street and everything. And if you look at all the things he wants for white people, and you put Louis
same as Black
Farrakhan
Lives
down,
Matter, yes.
or Black Lives Matter, and you look at all the stuff they want for black people, it's exactly the same except the race. So why does it become right wing when white people do it? It doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't like it, and I don't think it's accurate. I don't think that's what right wing means.
I think that's why the Republicans have no truck with white supremacy. Like the leftists have loads of communists in their ranks, and they're just free to mingle. But the white supremacists are not allowed into the Republican spaces. They just say, get lost, you know.
Yeah, because they tend to be a little bit more individualist, actually. I mean,
well, yeah, exactly. And it's because I think the Republicans accurately identify the white supremacists as, like you say, they're basically they're leftism for the white people.
Yeah, exactly. It's just leftism for white people.
Yeah.
And so like it's you know, that's just an unfair characterization in my opinion. Yeah. I also, by the way, and I'm not saying that you should do this, I don't want to tell anybody what to do with their language, but I never use the term classical liberal. I just say liberal because I will not give the left that word. Yeah. They are not liberal. They don't deserve it. I will never say that. I just say I'm a liberal. And when they say, "Oh no, what are you talking about?" Like David Jaffe, the guy who created God of War, I had him on the show. I've had him on a couple times. And I can do that. And he said, "I'm a pretty liberal." He was arguing with me. He thought I was a misogynist, and he keeps saying, "I'm a pretty liberal guy," and I'm like, "I'm a liberal too." Like I don't know what you're talking about. Like I don't have you're operating under weird assumptions. I think it's partly because the left has kind of corrupted the language around left, right, liberal, conservative, etc. So people will walk in with these sort of preconceived notions. Yeah. But I'm going to go back to what I was trying to say before. I think the situation with groups like Antifa, the alt-right, Black Lives Matter, just like name, by any means necessary. The one, I forget what she was like, for the sake of humanity, that other sort of Antifa-ish group. It's like antifascism.org or something like that. They're all like run and operated and founded by women, and they use, well, the alt-right maybe not, but it's all the product of a crisis of masculinity. These are men that are looking for a place to belong, a purpose to serve, something to do. And so what they're doing is they're falling into these collectivist traps because they don't have a family, they want to belong to something. The black men that Black Lives Matter started by 3 black women that only came into being because many black men were dying, and then when they started up, they make it intersectional feminist stuff, and they put men at the bottom, the men that died. And then there are men that serve under that model because they want to belong to something. And I think that even that's why I don't, like you said, I don't hate any of these groups. I don't hate Antifa. I know that what they're composed of are broken men that are they just want to do what's right, and they see
Cucks for life.
they see their
I was
mother
gonna mention that
in these figures. I mean,
Great.
like Yvette Falarca is a teacher.
Yeah.
She is a matronly figure, effectively.
She's intimidating. I saw
Yes.
her in real life. She walked past me, and I could see her eye me, and I could feel the heat of it.
Right. Yeah.
That is a commissar right there.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what the funny thing is a lot of this stuff is it's basically what happens. Maybe it's what happens when you have unaccountable tyrannical women like pushing around or utilizing weak beta males that just like they're just looking to do something right, and some of them end up joining those groups.
Every leftist group is composed in that way.
Yeah, they're run by women.
It's very
and-
obvious.
Yeah, it is. It's true. And go ahead.
So I was just wondering, from your UKIP tour that you put on in the southwest, that I mean, it seemed that there was. I quite liked it. I thought there was there was a lot of good free speech, and it was good to get people out on the streets actually talking about all of the issues they wanted to talk about. But it did seem as though there was a few crazy leftists who came
That was
along
the best
to.
part,
Yeah.
That was why I did it. To
Right,
get them
sorry.
out. Come on out and have a chat.
And yeah, I mean, from what I could see, I went to the Gloucester one, so I didn't see, that one seemed fairly tame compared to
That was,
some of the
but
others.
Gloucester's not a very left-wing place.
Yeah. But well, just some of the other ones, where there was the milkshaking, for
Totnes was the
instance.
best
And,
one, yeah.
right,
Totnes
yeah.
were a small army of middle-class leftists turned out to complain about fascism. It was just like, from where?
Uh-huh.
What are you talking about? But and it's interesting. I think they genuinely believe it as well. Because I was talking to one beta male for life, and he was like, I think that you would rather take away these people's free speech. You wouldn't give a platform to a woman. And it was just like, he was watching the previous interview I did, which was with a woman that I was giving a platform to. And I was just like, what the hell are you saying? Why would you even say that? You just watched me do the thing that you claim I wouldn't do. And he didn't have an answer. And it was like, well, of course you don't have an answer. What you're saying is ideological. It's not corresponding to reality. You've just watched me interview a woman. So it was wild. It was like, these people don't think.
That does seem to be a problem with
Yes.
a lot of the new progressives and so on, is just a kind of complete lack of any kind of thinking. And I'd say a lot of it is just this need for diplomacy as well.
Oh, totally.
And, to the need to fit in with whatever is being, dictated down to them by a central command or something. And
They have a way of kind of pruning out information and events, like with this guy. I mean, it just gone from his mind. He had a script that he was trying to fulfill, and reality didn't correspond to that at all. But he didn't care. That the parts that didn't were just ignored, as if they'd not happened, even though it's on video. Me interviewing this girl with him watching. He's watching me doing it, and then he was like, "You wouldn't platform a woman." Like, how? Can
5 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how can? But all I can assume is just that, okay, well, he's just pruned that out of his memory and is now carrying on with the script that he has. So yeah, I mean, the NPC meme went viral for a reason.
Yeah,
frankly.
yeah. I saw that as well with some of the women who. I think there was one woman who was just seemed really haughty and was going on about the the Jess Phillips tweets and so on. And I mean, there was a few comments about that tweet.
There was one in Swindon, one of the first ones I did, in fact, where the media had gone wild over this tweet, and so I'd sat down with this woman and said, we got into it, and about halfway through I was like, well, would you accept it if I offered you an apology? She said no. But she sat there demanding an apology from me. It's like, well, why wouldn't you accept it if I gave you an apology? What are you here for? You know, and she's got flustered and didn't know what to say and just kind of carried on attacking me. But I was just, okay, what are we doing?
Well, it's sort of a microcosm for feminism itself. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem to have an end goal.
Yeah.
Like it's just like what they expected from you, and you gave it to them right away, and they're just like, oh wait, that's not enough.
Yeah.
Kowtowing, like you should have, stepped down, quit your job.
It's not just feminism though, because
No.
it's also the Remainers as well. Because Jo Swinson had this example with the BBC the other day, because she was demanding a second referendum on the Brexit vote, and the BBC interviewer said to her, I think it was BBC, said, well, if you lose this one, will you then accept it? And she's like, no. It's like, why would we give you a second? Yeah, why would we have a second vote then if you're not going to accept that either? You know, we'll just be in the same situation. But it was like, what are you demanding then? You know, what are you demanding? What are you asking for? If you're not going to accept it. So it's not just feminism.
No.
I think it's about the sort of the zealotry of it.
Yeah.
It's that sort of.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was just wondering what you would say to, say, a young guy who wants to be patriotic to his Western country, who wants to have, say, more of a traditional, non-crazed feminist relationship, who's going out
Which is
into
now
the world.
traditional, just a normal relationship, I would have called it. But,
Yeah. Who's going out into the world and who's seeing, the BBC or CNN and
Be
all
careful
of this
what you post
craziness.
on social media, because you don't know. A lot of people end up going viral who are not trying to go viral. Who are not. They're just living their lives and saying whatever they want, and then suddenly they're on the news and all of their Twitter history is dragged up. And look, he said this in 2011. And, it's cruel and unfair, and there's not a lot you can do about it. So just you have to be preemptive in this regard. Like for me, it's fun because I'm deliberately provocative. So I'm going into it as an adult with intent of, drawing them out and making them do crazy things. But for the average person, you've got to think ahead. You've got to think, hang on, this would be a funny thing to post or whatever, but, it could be damaging. So be sensible. You've got to be very sensible.
It's possible if the mainstream media creates a smear campaign against you that it might go the wrong way.
It might not even be based on something that you've actually posted or done. It could be a misinterpreted short clip of something you didn't do that gets you the ire of the sort of international media elite. So it's just a hazard of being in the world now that we have to be aware of.
I was just going to ask you, are you going to be doing more free speech events in the UK?
Yeah, I will. To be honest with you, I've just been really busy recently.
Sure.
But yeah, I do plan to do more stuff.
Excellent, good stuff. Nice one.
All right, I want to ask. So you saw the Red Pill for the first time yesterday. So I guess first off, I want to get your thoughts, like if you liked it or not, and if there was a scene that stood out for you as particularly good.
Yeah, I really liked it actually. I didn't think it would be as interesting a narrative, a compelling a narrative as it was, but it genuinely was, and it was really. I'm really glad that Cassie put her personal diaries video diaries in the movie, because you could see her struggling with the feminist orthodoxy that she had imbibed and was living her life by, and the new information that destroyed by process of sort of a cascade the narrative that the men's rights activists were saying, well, look, these are the facts, and then she goes, right, I'm going to check this. She checks the facts, and then it's like, oh God, that's true. So what I've been told isn't true. How do I wrestle with this? And I thought that was very compelling, and it really made it totally worth watching. And all of the people being interviewed were on their best form as well. They were not just under attack. She was actually trying to get what is the legitimacy of your position, which is very rare for a feminist to do that with anyone. But I think that the most impactful thing, the thing that really stuck with me, is at the very end where she says, I no longer call myself a feminist. And if you notice that Warren Farrell, I think it was, he was the same. He started as a feminist, as she goes through in the documentary and explains, and then he becomes a men's rights activist instead. Because actually, God, if I'm looking at it honestly, oh God, men are not really very powerful at all. In fact, all of society seems structured to cater to women in families. men seem to do a lot of self-sacrifice here, and they don't even get any credit for it. And things like this, and I think that's the pattern. And I noticed there are a lot of ex-feminists here, people who were involved with all this, and they realised, well, hang on a second, this just isn't true. This is not the narrative that feminism produces of men being the eternal oppressor is not true at all. But yeah, it was the bit where she said, I don't consider myself a feminist. I thought that was very good.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite moments. For me, it's the bit where Karen talks about Boko Haram, and they talk about how they cover, these giant tragedies, especially in the Middle East, in Islamic countries, because that's one of the things that, like, people on the left and the right hate us for, is the way that we discuss Islam, because we try to, look at it from, looking at the situation for men. You can't know the answer to an equation unless you have all the variables, and the only way that we usually look at these things is through the lens of, okay, what's the situation for women?
As it affected women.
Yeah, but we have to also look at men and then look at it together before we can come to a conclusion. But one of the things, just on a lighter note, I love that she managed to find Chanty Binks, the Big Red.
Mm-hmm. And I love that she didn't back down on any of the stuff either.
No.
She was exactly the same person like 6 years later or whatever it was. It's like, really? You haven't grown at all in those 6 years. You're still angry. You're still...
Yeah.
Oh, God, imagine living like that. Every single day.
Same haircut.
Yeah.
But I was thinking this, and I want to know what you think about this. I love Chanty Binks.
Yeah,
I love Big
great.
Red. And the
Best
reason
meme.
why, she is the best meme,
Yeah.
and she's basically a living meme. I don't know if you know this, but when somebody found this, but on Tumblr, she used to have like this weird bondagey Tumblr, so she's kind of into kinky stuff, I guess. But beyond that, though, the thing I love about Chanty Binks is, like, despite her being really new to the movement, becoming the face of the movement on the internet, I think that she's done us more good than than anything that we've even done, just by being herself.
Yeah.
And so I personally am going to make it my mission to find her and get her to come on to either Honey Badger Radio or the next ICMI, and make her a speech. I would make her a keynote. Mm-hmm. I would make her a keynote speaker.
I would love to hear her.
And I would like her to show up in a white jacket with a colorful scarf and a list of things that are the fault of patriarchy.
Yeah.
If I ask her a question, she tells me to shut the fuck up. That would be the best. Yeah.
Well, look, she legitimately did become the face of feminism in 2013 because of, like, this was the avatar of everything people have been complaining about. Like, not all of these features are going to be in every single feminist, but she's like all of them mashed together and then thrown in your face. And it was like, see, we told you these people are like this. We've seen it many times, and here she is being exactly that stereotype. It's like, thanks a lot, Chanty.
Yep, and I know that a lot of people because Cassie J caught a lot of flack for that film. The Australian media treated her terribly, and just about all the mainstream media. I know there was a Canadian woman and that was on a thing where she basically said that men's rights activists just want to make rape legal or something, something insane like that, right? I mean, like, not even incels want to do that. That's crazy. But it's true. She did say that. She said that. She said they should make it, like, legal for, I think it was something like, she said MRAs want to make it legal for them to have sex with women whenever they want, so that way they wouldn't have to rape them. It's like, we want to just have, because like raping women is so much effort goes into that. You gotta hold them down and drug them. And
that is
chloroform is expensive and hard to find.
Not even someone like Roosh V actually.
I know, it's insane.
Like,
no, but she just said that. But
And she was on regular news show.
She
or
was
something.
on the CBC, which is basically the BBC and CNN. It's it's just that. So it just absolutely crazy.
Just with the general, sort of a lot of the other crazy social justice warriors, and we've seen a fair few of them this year and stuff. I mean, do you think that trend is just going to continue with, I suppose, with radical feminism being out there? Or?
Well, I don't think it'll be a civil war. I don't think the institutions.
Well,
it'll be a social war.
Yeah.
Where it'll be like in Portland yesterday, where two groups of people who have diametrically opposed worldviews and moral axioms will get together and call each other the devil until one of them attacks and does damage to another, and then theoretically the police would step in. But yeah, Portland's Antifa sympathetic mayor will just let them off. But yeah, I think it'll be like that, and I think there will eventually be blood in the streets like that. But I don't think the movements are actually these are the radical fringes who are going to fight one another. I don't think they're broad enough for the sort of sensible majority to want to get involved in that. So I don't think it'll necessarily be a civil war. I don't think they're going to, the army's going to join one and then, crush the other. I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
But I think it will be quite a lot of social strife, and I think it will be damaging to a lot of people's lives. I think it'll ruin a lot of lives.
And the media and politicians won't take accountability for it.
No.
They'll just say, that ain't us. I don't know what's going on over there. That's you
exactly.
racist.
Even though they tweet in support of these things and encourage it. But so I don't know where it ends, but I don't think it'll be like a civil war as in the common understanding of a civil war. But it'll definitely be a war of a kind. So.
I do feel as though, we've had kind of the walls closing in for quite a while, and I think a lot of people have faced actual discrimination, and one of the statistics I heard this conference was that I believe it was, I'm not sure, I think it was last year in the UK, it was over 3,000 people were arrested for posted mainly tweets, social media posts. So,
what? You guys need freedom of speech.
Yeah, we don't have freedom.
I know you need it.
I know we do.
Crazy.
We really do. But yeah, Sadiq Khan is always complaining they don't have enough money for police on the beat, but they have like 600 people patrolling Twitter, which must be a really comfortable job if you're a cop because you just sit there reading tweets.
Yeah, really.
But no, unironically, we have a sort of progressive metropolitan class that think that they can engineer the world through the internet, and so they dedicate more and more time to controlling the sort of social sphere in that way. But it is really oppressive. It is actually affecting people's lives. It is getting people arrested, thrown in jail, fined, etc., etc. And then there's a huge spate of knife crime going on. There's grooming gangs. There's all sorts of stuff that's going on.
None of that's actually happening, guys. None of it. There's just the white supremacist KKK Brexit people that just want to leave for some
right.
It's all Richard Spencer.
And then Tim Pool and Stefan Molyneux.
Andy Ngo, that notorious Nazi. It's like Andy Ngo is the most kind and gentle person I've ever met. Watching him getting punched is disgraceful. I hate it. And then watching them smear him in the media, they just call him all these names and say, "Well, what are you justifying me with?" I'm a dick. I can understand you calling me things because I say dickish things. But Andy Ngo does not say dickish things. He's not hostile to people. He's very calm. He's very rational. He's very collected. And yet they'll do the same to him that they do to me. And it's like, look, this is not fair.
And I hate the standing up for Antifa as well, and ignoring them, and otherwise just saying, these heroes, and it's like, they're not heroes, they're some of the most
villains.
reprehensible human beings I've ever seen.
I'm sorry, did you see the thing, you must have seen it, with, is it Andrew Cuomo from CNN? And he's an anchorman, Italian guy. Chris Cuomo, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about that, I get him mixed with the other guy. And he was threatening to throw the guy down the stairs like just a tough guy. What's funny about that is that he was angry because he was called a was it? Fredo. Yes, a Fredo.
It's an insult to my people, good sir.
Yeah, it's the N-word for us.
Yes.
I've never heard this before.
The poor oppressed Italians.
Yes, the poor oppressed Italian CNN anchors.
Multi-millionaires.
Exactly.
Internationally famous.
And so he goes to prove, I guess, he pushes back against this unfortunate, terrible N-word for Italian people insult by acting like a mafioso to the guy and threatening to throw him down the stairs.
Right.
This is how I will disprove that what you're doing is a terrible, stereotype. I'm going to threaten to fuck you up. And I mean, it's...
You're acting like a Fredo, Chris.
Say something like that again, you'll be sleeping with the fishes.
Yeah, you may as well. Hey, I'll have you in cement shoes, buddy. That'll teach me. I don't want to stereotype Italians anymore. So weird. I mean, anyway, I think that's all I got. I want to thank you so much for talking to me and coming to the ICMI.
Dude,
I think it was
it's
like,
been amazing.
Well, thank you, Brian, and thank you, Sargon.
No problem,
and
man.
great talk, and good conference. Excellent.
all right.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
Cool. Cheers.